Origin stories, they're fun. Get to know the Lyons Group. Today we're going to talk about what were our lives like before real estate and what got us to this point. Stay tuned for this episode.
The Den, powered by the Lyons Group, a show dedicated to exploring hot topics in real estate, local happenings, and industry trends. We're a small team of professionals approaching $400 million in sales and nearly 2,000 local transactions. You're listening to time-tested experts and industry leaders. Here's a refreshing look at real estate happenings and more. Welcome to The Den.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of The Den. And today we're going to be talking about our origin stories. What were our lives like before we got into real estate? But before I get there, let me introduce my partners, my friends, my co-hosts, the fellow members of the Lyons Group. To my left, Paul, Hammy the Rockberry, Melissa, let's go, Glasgow, Aspen, the Ninja Groen, Shannon, the boss, Martin Martinez, and my name is Ben Lyons, the butt dialer, the one, the only. And welcome to this episode of The Den, top brokers taking on tough questions, but no real question, maybe some questions today, but more about what were our lives like before we got into real estate. I think it's, you know what, I haven't heard everyone's origin story, so I'm excited to hear what got us to this point. So Paul, why don't you kick us off today? What brought you to this career, this industry? Tell us about life before real estate.
So are we going all the way back to birth?
Man, you can start.
What are we doing?
You can start wherever you want.
Well, I grew up in Massachusetts, just south of Boston.
Okay.
I never wanted to be a realtor. I grew up wanting to be, like every kid, a baseball player. That didn't work out very well.
Wait a minute. How do you say Boston?
Like you just did.
Just okay.
Yeah.
Does everyone else say it like that?
Boston.
Boston?
Boston.
Boston?
Boston. Boston.
Boston.
Boston.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just checking.
That's how you say it.
Yeah.
Boston.
No. You're in the Southwest now.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So my wife likes the accent, but it comes out only when I'm really mad or I've had a couple of drinks. So growing up out there, it was, we were not too well off. Tried to go to college, couldn't afford it. So I went into the military, went into the Marine Corps, went overseas, 2003, came back, met my wife at my best friend from the Marine Corps. He lived in Farmington. That's how I ended up here. Met my wife at their wedding. He married my wife's twin sister.
Where was the wedding at?
Here.
Was here?
Farmington.
Yep. Okay.
And it's the church right across from the new Walmart. I don't know what that is. Right next to Navajo Prep.
Oh, okay. Oh.
That little church. They had 2 weeks to prepare. It was actually a pretty cool wedding.
Wow.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Yep. So then 2004, my wife and I got engaged, married in 2005, got 3 kids. I was in the oil field since I moved here. I worked in the oil field in various service related industries.
So when you flew to Farmington to go to the wedding, did you have like this feeling like home?
No.
Or were you like, holy moly, where am I?
There's a good story behind this one too.
Yeah.
My wife's sister, Andrea, and her college roommate picked me up at the airport. And they didn't have a sign or anything like that, but it was just like, and I'd never seen a picture. We didn't have smartphones back then.
Sure.
So I just saw somebody staring at me as I was going towards baggage claim and never met them before. But then got into, once I called my wife, they kind of got us together. We get in the car and her roommate is the driver. Scariest ride. Like
Even scarier than going to Santa Fe?
No, that wasn't that bad. Well, in a Tesla, so I'll take this. First time in a Tesla, hands-free driving was like 2 months ago.
I'm not a great driver either.
I was stressing out in the back.
Was she nodding off at the
No,
wheel?
but they were both texting. And I was like, this is like rule number 1. You're not supposed to do this. So we go, anyway, back to 2004, or this is 2003, they got married. I get in the car, and I was a few months out of Iraq, and I was more scared on that car ride back than I was over there. It was very scary. But we got here. Then the oil field, went through all the ups and downs of that. And you very graciously, we became friends because I was friends with your wife. After my third downturn, you said, give this a try. So I've been through a ton of sales training and all that kind of stuff, and didn't have the hottest start when I started out, but I made a lot of calls and hit the no train pretty good.
The no train.
Yeah.
The no. In fact, we had this database. Remember this, Shannon?
Yeah.
We had this database of like, I don't know, 500 people that had, over the years we accumulated, had probably no interest in real estate at that point because this database was so cold. And very first thing I told Paul was, here's a list. Go ahead and start calling and asking questions. And so he would call, I'm on the no train. And so pretty much everyone he would talk to, but you did get a deal or two out of that, didn't you? Or
I got a country club sale. I probably got about maybe under $1 million out of that.
Wow.
But I got 3 or 4 deals out of that.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It was good.
That's good.
He rolled his sleeves up, grabbed a shovel, and went to work.
Yeah, it was not glamorous. We were in a little hole in the wall office.
Yeah,
at the time.
Showed swamp properties.
Swamp properties.
Realtor,
Yeah,
who didn't want to get their Uggs dirty.
But I was the one putting out signs. I was doing the open houses. I was doing all those things.
You were grinding.
Yep,
you were grinding for sure. So you served in the Marines, and you were part of Desert Storm.
No. Operation
Iraqi Freedom.
I'm
sorry, Iraqi Freedom. That's right.
Yeah, that was
Desert Storm was years before.
Yeah,
that's right. Yep. Wrong classification. So tell us just
same quick. President, same family though.
Yeah, it was the Bushes. Yeah. Yep. So tell us a little bit about your time in the Marines.
It was fun.
Yeah,
had a lot of good friends there. Got to go all over the world. Learned Arabic. They taught me Arabic, so that was my MOS.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Which is kind of my job description as an Arabic linguist. I did some, people call it special forces. I did the training. I didn't actually get to do any missions with them, but I did some of that training, which was fun. They didn't get really many missions in the war at the time, so I got on a different type of vehicle and got to do some cool stuff. Was detached to the infantry. Play soldier for a little bit. Yeah,
that's awesome. And well, thank you for your service, Paul.
Thank you.
And I'm glad all of that brought you to where you are today. So,
yeah.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Melissa, you're up. Tell us about your past.
Well, I grew up in Farmington, and as soon as I could get a job, I had many jobs. Working at the mall, all that fun stuff. Worked at the Boys and Girls Club. But the job that really got me was working at Sherry's Studio. They had just opened in the mall, and I learned how to be a photo lab tech. And I loved it. Graduated high school, moved up to Lakewood, Washington, and I worked in another photo lab called Roby's Camera Center. And they had a more full service lab. So we did like black and white processing, by hand, and along with the film and the prints. We also did slide processing, and then of course regular C41, which is color film processing. I loved it. I loved it so much. It really just got me my creativity going, and I started to love photography. And at that time, I started doing more landscape stuff. So up in the Pacific Northwest, one of my favorite places to go to was the Point Defiance Zoo.
Love Point Defiance.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful pagoda garden. It's just gorgeous up there. So loved that. It's been a couple of years in Washington and then moved to Albuquerque. And here's the trend. So what am I good at? I'm good at being a photo lab worker. So I got a job at Picture Perfect, which is a full service professional lab in Albuquerque. During my time there, I started venturing more into doing portraiture, into weddings, into events, which really got that creative bug moving in me. I really, really loved it. And one day when I was working in the lab, we had a client come in. It was a regular. And in Albuquerque, when it's getting close to fair time, you get all of your photography participants coming in, and we did the mounting of the photos. We did it all professionally so that their fair entries would be great. And he told me, he's like, "Hey, Melissa, we've got." He was a police officer. And he says, "Hey, we've got this first citizen CSI class coming up. You should apply for it." And I said, "Oh, yes, I should." And my uncle actually told me about it like within a day. So it's like, okay, this is a sign. I'm going to apply for this CSI Academy.
So crime scene investigator.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I applied and I was accepted. It was a really cool course. Similar to what, Farmington Police does here with their Women of Insight and Girls with Grit with the Sheriff's Department, but it was only crime scene stuff. So
wait a minute. So this is the same woman who in the last episode talked about finding a femur in the crawl space. I think there's some synchronicities here. Yeah.
So went through that class. It was phenomenal. And that just really, I was like, okay, this is really cool. I want to work in the forensic photography unit at the crime lab. Spot came open, and this is where I learned the value of networking. So because I had taken this class and got to know the supervisor of the crime lab, the supervisor of the photo unit, all these things, I was able to advance my application and my interview process. Got in with that, loved that job. I can't remember how long I was at the city of Albuquerque, maybe 5 years, something like that. And it was phenomenal because working in the forensic photography unit, I got to train detectives on crime scene photography, anywhere from a city of Albuquerque vehicle fender bender to a homicide. So a huge range of stuff there. So we prepared photo evidence for trial, for discovery, for if you got in an accident and you need those pictures for your insurance, anything. So it's public record, so you can request them. I also got to go to scenes. I got to go to Office of the Medical Investigator for autopsy. Like, it was really cool. Really,
you would have had to train me up because I would have been the guy walking around with boots and eating a candy bar and you can't drop that.
Picking something up. Ew,
you can't drop that there. It's got your DNA on it.
But eventually moved back to Farmington, which 18-year-old me would have been like, why are you doing this? Farmington's awful. Farmington's not awful. Farmington's great. But that job does not exist in Farmington or San Juan County. It's too specialized for the size of the departments here.
Sure.
So got in with the city of Farmington and worked at the electric utility and got to know that process, which is really cool. So, it's nice to know now when I'm selling homes, like, hey, what you have to do next, put an application for your utilities. There's probably going to be a deposit. This is what it means. I get to help people with that. Then I kind of had a life change, and my son was really busy with baseball. Really busy. And I had to miss one tournament. They went to Ventura, California. I was working actually at the college at that time. At the same time, I was doing photography for Ryan Brown for his listings. And he says to me, hey, Melissa, you wouldn't have to miss tournaments if you got your real estate license.
Mm-hmm. He planted the seed, didn't he?
He did. Yeah. And it worked. It worked. I think within probably 4 months, I was doing my education and then I got my license and all that. And the rest is history. But what the long story of that is I have realized I am professionally nosy. I am. I get to look at all of the memories you're making when you're developing your film. Mm-hmm. I have been to your homes on your worst of days with crime scene stuff. And now I get to go into your homes on the best of days because you're selling your property.
You are a snooper.
So I am a snooper. I am Gladys Kravitz. Yes, I love it. I don't know how exactly everything lined up, but I'm glad that it did because this is so rewarding. And to be able to help people in good times is great because don't get me wrong. I mean, wedding photography is a lot of fun, but it is very stressful.
Oh, yeah.
Very stressful. And it's really hard to see, a year later, they're divorced. And it's like, oh, man, all that work.
Yeah. Well, but going back to the crime scene component, man, I don't know how you got, I couldn't do that. Going in and seeing some of that stuff, I would be scarred. Yeah, and having to take the photos. And I mean, I know you're doing accidents and stuff, but the homicides and some of the real terrible stuff, I really commend our frontline responders, our first responders. I think too, what we know as a general public is literally a sliver of actually what happens in our communities. Yeah. So, I always think, you might be having a bad day, but probably not as bad as somebody else. Yeah. Very well said. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Aspen, you're up. Tell us about your life before real estate.
I am kind of like Melissa. Lots of odd jobs from the time I could start working. Even before, I remember my dad always had us doing a lot of work. So I've always worked just, in general, I've always liked to work. But also my parents are entrepreneurs and I think I kind of just got the same bug. Even the normal jobs that I had, I remember being 15 working at a hair salon and just being like, but we could do this and we can make this better. Or I worked at a dentist office. I was like, well, we got all these different ideas and most businesses kind of are like, okay, well, let's just do your job.
Be sure to sweep up.
Yeah. So I graduated from high school pretty early. So I graduated when I was 16. So I kind of just got into college, moved out, and I was going to school at San Juan College. So I've never moved away. Always lived here. I did not want to be a baseball player whenever I was a little kid. I wanted to go into surgery. That's what I wanted to do, like from the time I was like 7, 8. So that's what I thought. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. So I went to school for, it started with biology is what I started with, but it kind of quickly transferred into chemistry. And then I went to college at Fort Lewis College. But in that time, I was having to work. So I had a normal job, but I was also doing photography. My parents had gotten me a camera for my graduation gift. And I was doing wedding photography at the time. I was going to college up in Durango. I'm with you. It's so much work, and your weekends all summer are booked. So I always knew it was never a forever job for me. I'm a summer person. I love my summer, and I was like, I cannot be working this. But it was nights on weekends whenever I didn't have school. So it was really...
And then all the pressure. Oh my gosh, if you miss that moment or, you know, you just don't get the right angle. Oh man.
Something fails.
Yeah.
Yeah. Redundancy was a really important thing.
Did you have a lot of like bridezillas or?
No.
No, most people were pretty,
I had one person who I had a feeling about from the beginning, but it was kind of a last minute thing and she needed someone right away and should have listened to my gut on that one. But aside from that, no, none.
Oh, that's good. That's good because you hear these horror stories.
Yeah.
And I can imagine, I mean, again, you put people's personalities into a pressure cooker and sometimes pretty comes out and sometimes not so pretty comes out.
Yeah, no, I never had anyone be rude. And I think it's just like, you know, what you attract to. I wouldn't take just anybody either because I'd been doing photography for about 8 years. So I was a little bit pickier about what I chose. And that was all I did really was, you know, senior pictures and family sometimes, but mainly weddings. And that parlayed really good into real estate. And then whenever I didn't use my degree at all, because my husband is the training chief of Farmington Fire. So he had gotten hired on at the fire department. And so we were staying here. So I kind of just started, again, doing these odd things. I was still doing photography, but I got really into yoga. So I opened up the first aerial yoga studio here and ended up getting a partner. And so we had a studio in Telluride, Dolores, and here doing aerial yoga mostly.
That's impressive because like I would hurt myself. You need to have like an 8-inch or 12-inch. Yeah, I would.
He would hurt himself.
I would hurt.
I drug Melissa to a class just a few weeks ago.
It was fun. It was scary. I don't know why it's so scary. You're only like
a little scary.
24 inches off the ground, but it was scary, but it was fun.
Yeah, it is fun. So got to go to India and do training for that. So that was really awesome. It was super fun. Cool experience just traveling. I've always loved to travel. I love having freedom of schedule. My parents always flipped houses, so we moved constantly. I think I moved like 14 or 15 times like growing up. I mean, we just moved sometimes multiple times in a year. Sometimes we stayed for a year or two. And my husband had moved down from Wyoming. He was doing construction. So it kind of just parlayed easily from our first house into just starting to flip our own houses and then getting more into real estate. So after we sold and our first house, that's whenever I got licensed.
You got the bug. Mm-hmm. That's what happens. You just get the bug and it's in you.
Yeah. And I knew a lot of people that were doing it. I mean, everyone knows 10 realtors, right? But it was kind of just, I was like, wow, you do have a lot of freedom in your schedule. If I would have only known that that freedom is not what it seems to be.
From the outside, everyone's, oh, you have so much time. And okay.
Yeah. It just kind of parlayed into that after we'd bought our second house. So
yeah.
And then I did quit photography kind of cold turkey because I like to focus and yoga. So I got out of the yoga studios, got out of photography and kind of just went all in and had to make it work and doing it for about 5 years now.
You know, that is a consistent theme I hear with people. It's hard to put one leg in and one leg out. Like if you're going to do real estate and especially young realtors, if you're listening to this, like if you're not all in, go all in. If you're going to make this work, like you got to burn the boats. You got to say there's no other option. I either succeed or I fail, and I'm not going to allow myself to fail.
Yeah, and people had told me if you can get through 2 years, it gets easier, and it's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first year was hard, and then COVID, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
But it worked really great with my photography because people couldn't go inside houses. So I was doing video tours where I would talk on the videos and have a nice, pretty video going through the house for people. So that's how I was just doing it for free for people. And I was like, can I put my advertising at the end? You know, if I pay your stuff at the beginning. And so it really worked good having just another thing to be able to bring in. And I don't do any of my pictures or anything like now, but it was really nice.
Yeah, it was a good transition.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Shannon, Martin Martinez, the boss. I want to hear about it.
Well,
Fill me in.
okay.
I don't know you.
I didn't find real estate. I think I always say it like it found me. When I was younger, I just worked a lot of hospitality jobs. I worked in hotels mainly and restaurants. And when I got to be in my mid-20s, I just decided, that I really needed a career. I needed to do something. And trying to think back on what I'd always liked or what was interesting to me or fascinating to me, I decided that I wanted to work in the legal field. So I started going to college, and I was going to school for a paralegal. And I really find it interesting. Thought I had landed my dream job, started working at a law office, and it turns out they're horrible people.
Not all of them.
Don't sue us.
They are horrible people. No, they're not. They're not all horrible people. But I think what my biggest downfall was I was working in an attorney's office that did, divorces and criminal defense and public defender work. And, so you're not meeting people on their best days, and it's high stress. And, I always wanted to work on the other side of it. Like I'm with you, Melissa. Like I wanted to work on more of a prosecutorial side.
Prosecutorial, yep.
So that was more where my passion would have been. Started going to the program, really enjoyed it, met a lot of great people, worked in the legal field for a while, and really recognized that I was not fitting in there, that this was not where I needed to be. Still in the legal field, but not where I was. So I had actually called a temp agency. And I told him, I said, I just don't think this is going to work out for me. I really feel like maybe I should put in some applications, maybe you can start putting your feelers out, see if we find anything. I put my application in, talked to the gal on a lunch hour, which was really funny, on my lunch hour. Went back to work, finished up my day. The next morning I came in and they fired me. They didn't think I fit in either. I'd never been fired from a job before. They didn't think I fit in either, and kindly let me go. I didn't tell them that I was already looking for a new job. I just took my last month's pay that they gave me on the way out.
Yeah.
And as I pulled out of the parking lot, I felt this sense of relief.
Yeah.
And I still knew I wanted to be in the legal field, but I was glad that I was out of the position I was in. I called the temp agency back and I said, well, that application I put in yesterday, I'm free anytime you might have something available, because I need to find some work, obviously, fairly quickly. As I was still in school and I needed to support myself. She said, well, if you're ready, I did just get a call from an office. They're really needing some secretarial work, and they need someone today. And I said, no problem. I'm already dressed for work. Where is it? It was Coldwell Banker, Sunwest Properties. And this was in 1997.
Shirley Stewart.
She gave me my first break, and she was just a great lady. So I show up down there and, they kind of set me behind the desk and get me started, and I answer some phones and I'm meeting some people, and it's kind of a fun job, Well, about a week into this temporary job, which they were having me cover for somebody at the time, Shirley Stewart actually came up to me and said, we really like you. What's your long-term plan? And I said, well, I just need a job. I'm going to school, she said, well, if you would like to stay, we would like to have you here. And I said, absolutely. So they hired me full time. So I worked actually there for 3 years as unlicensed, as an assistant. I helped the realtors in all different areas of real estate, learned a lot about real estate while I was learning about law. They were kind enough to let me take my lunch hours and go up to the college to take a class. I would go up right after work and go back to more classes. So I worked the two for quite a long time, still thinking that this was a temporary place for me to be.
Yeah.
When I left Sunwest Properties, I immediately got a call from another brokerage that said, hey, we just heard that you left Sunwest Properties. Would you like to maybe come over here? We're starting up a new office. We could really use some experience on how to run an office and what to do in a real estate office. And I said, sure. So I start working over at another real estate office. Eventually, I started thinking, what am I doing? Like, I clearly keep getting called back to this, because they said, well, why don't you get your license? Because that would make you even more valuable to us. So I'm still going to school for a paralegal, and I'm getting my real estate license just for this temporary job that I'm going to work. Ended up getting my license. Then I started selling while I was going to school to be a paralegal. Everything kept telling me.
Kept lining up for you. Yeah.
Well, I happened to be at an office that was 2 doors down from another real estate office, which is where a nice young broker came in one day. And we started talking and eventually, got to be a little bit more
I delivered your mail, didn't I?
You delivered my mail, which is funny. So he came down and he was new in town and I didn't even know that he was the new guy, and he delivered the mail. And I said, "Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Have a nice day." And after he left, somebody said, "Oh, he's the new guy that owns the brokerage 2 doors down." I said, "Oh, well, I should have been nicer. I didn't even realize he was a fellow broker." Not that I wasn't nice. So I think I ended up going down there a couple days later and introducing myself. And I said, "I apologize. I didn't realize you were a fellow realtor." And we got to be a little bit friends. Left that brokerage, moved to his brokerage. Eventually, I just decided that I probably needed to give up the
paralegal
idea.
dream.
Yeah, because I was obviously pursuing real estate and just settled in. So starting in 1997 was my first exposure to real estate. Again, unlicensed. By 2000, I had my real estate license. By, I want to say it was 2001, I gave up my dreams of being in the legal field. And that's all I've done since. And I've done everything from, running offices to transaction coordinator to selling real estate to all different facets of real estate. And at this point, I just don't know what else I would do. I think I would be lost if I tried anything else. I'm not sure I could do it.
It is your life now, Shannon.
It's what I do. Yeah.
Yep.
It just kind of found me. So it was not a career path.
You tried to get away and it just kept sucking you back in.
Yeah. And a couple times along the way, I've thought, maybe I just want to retire. Maybe I just want to this, maybe, and I've shifted gears a couple of times and tried different avenues of real estate. But I've always just stayed there. It was never a dream of mine. It wasn't something that I thought it would be a good career. It just kind of fell in my lap.
Well, that's fantastic. And I love hearing all the origin stories because everyone comes from these different backgrounds, which is pretty incredible. Now, we're running short on time, so I'm going to have to save my origin story for some other episode. I know.
Boo.
But real
How
quick.
Convenient.
I know. Ben the butt dialer Lyons. Ben the procrastinator.
He'll just butt dial you one night and tell you
Yes.
you're not expecting.
Yes. So I do have a speed round real quick, and we just got about a minute left. But I want to know, what would you be doing if you weren't in real estate right now? What would be your career, Paul?
I'd probably still be in the oil field.
Be in the oil field grinding it out.
Or a police officer.
Yep. I could see that. See that. Melissa?
Probably some sort of a government job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stability, 9 to 5, retirement.
Yeah.
Insurance.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. Coming from a realtor.
Yeah.
That's funny. Aspen?
It's hard to say. I'll probably still be doing yoga studios and photography, but if I was going back, I probably would have gone back to school for just continuing on with my education. Maybe not medical school, but maybe just working for a master's for biochemistry. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I see entrepreneur all over you. I don't know how that other vein would have maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Shannon, if you weren't in real estate, you wouldn't be in paralegal either.
It wouldn't be the law.
Yeah.
No.
What would you be doing?
I'd be farming.
I was going to say she's a farmer. She would have her goats. You'd have your goats. You'd be rocking and rolling.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. That's fantastic. So there you have it. The Lyons Group, all the origin stories except for mine. I may have to kick that in another episode. Thank you for watching today. If you have any ideas for talking points for us or have any concepts you want us to explore here locally, real estate and other things, obviously, we're happy to discuss that. Just comment on the video below or send us a message. Go to sjcbroker.com. You can reach out to any one of the Lyons Group members. We would love to have a consultation with you, whether you're buying or selling. We do residential and commercial. You can schedule a private consultation with us at any point. But we'd love to hear from you. We love this local community. We love working together, and real estate is obviously our passion. And even if we had other career paths, I bet we'd all probably gravitate back toward real estate. So thank you for joining us today. On our next episode, we are going to be talking about some of our favorite things in the local area, living in northern New Mexico and southern Colorado. So we're going to share some of our thoughts in that regard. But we appreciate you joining us today in The Den. And until next time, we'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to The Den, powered by the Lyons Group. Hit the subscribe button to keep informed on real estate happenings. If you'd like to learn more about the Lyons Group, visit sjcbroker.com. sjcbroker.com. Complex markets require complex strategies. The Lyons Group can give you a true advantage in any market. Whether you're buying or selling, residential or commercial, contact us directly at sjcbroker.com. We're time-tested experts with a client-first approach, and we'll see you next time in the Den.